Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am here with what I hope is a very anticipated video. It certainly was for me. As I have hinted on this channel, I came back from a trip to London and since then have acquired a few books. In fact, I had a list ready to go before we even went because I knew there were certain books that I would absolutely want to buy that are either impossible to find here in the US or are just very difficult to find in the US. So I am here with that haul to show you, and I am so excited about these. First, however, I have a few other books that I acquired before I left. As a lot of you know, I'm a teacher, and our new librarian continues her weeding project of our library, and thus has been getting rid of a lot of books that are no longer serving our students, but tend to be a lot of books that I remember from when I was a middle grade reader myself. So I rescued some books from her discard cart after a staff meeting one day, so I thought I'd show you those first. First up, we have this series, The Roman Mysteries by Caroline Lawrence. I have 3 of these, and I will show you all of them in turn. But this is a series I remember getting from the library when I was 9 or 10 years old. And I remember really liking them, but I never really continued with the series. I read a couple, but that was it. So when I saw 3 on the cart, I knew I had to pick them up. I have since discovered, however, that there are 12 books in this series, and these are not the first 3, so I will have to hunt them down eventually. But these are about a group of children from various parts of the Roman Empire who end up coming together and help to solve mysteries, while also showcasing and teaching their readers a great deal about ancient Roman history. And something I also liked at the time, but really love now that I'm older and realizing how important it is, are the diversity of these characters. So I'm just going to read you the first bit here. So we are in September of 79 AD. In Ostia, near Rome, Flavia Gemina, the sea captain's daughter, Nubia, the African girl, and Lupus, the mute boy, are celebrating their friend Jonathan's birthday. Now, based on the name, Jonathan might be a Christian or a Jew, but I don't remember offhand. Then a visitor from the past arrives to see Jonathan's father. The next day, the visitor has disappeared, and so has Jonathan. When the 3 friends discover that Jonathan has gone on a secret mission to Rome, they are determined to follow him. Their mission takes them to the golden house of the Emperor Nero, where a deadly assassin is at work, and brings them face to face with the terrible destruction of Jerusalem and its impact on Jonathan's family. Aha, I was right. So this is book number 4. Obviously, there's some backstory to be followed up on. If any of you know of somewhere where I can find the rest of these, that would be really great. And I can't wait to dip into these and remember why I liked them so much. So the 3 I have are The Assassins of Rome, The Thieves of Ostia, and The 12 Tasks of Flavia Gemina. And there are many more in that series as well. So I'm trying to cover all the stickers here. The next book that I rescued was Princess Academy by Shannon Hale. I love Shannon Hale's books. I loved the Goose Girl series. I've loved her adult books like Austenland. And I know this is one of her early and very highly praised middle grade books, but I just never got around to reading it when I was the appropriate age. So since it was free and needing a home, I thought I would adopt these. Speaking of series I read and never really continued in middle grade, that's where the rest of these books came from. The first is that I did not realize that there were sequels to Gloria Whelan's books. And the one in particular, which I've forgotten, yes, Angel on the Square. That one I read when I was in middle school, and I remember really loving it. It's a middle grade novel about, I believe, the Russian Revolution, or certainly the period just before or during. And I really loved it, but I never knew that there were sequels. Now, I am missing one, The Impossible Journey, but I discovered my library has that as an ebook, so I can read it that way. And then the school was discarding books 3 and 4. It looks like at least, there are connections between Angel on the Square and these later books. There are certain characters that you follow throughout, but based on the descriptions, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think you could also follow along with the rest perfectly if you don't end up reading them in sequential order. So The Impossible Journey, I think, takes place in the 1930s, I want to say. The ones I picked up are book 3, Burying the Sun. There we go, the glare is terrible. Which takes place around the siege of Leningrad, it looks like, through the eyes of these children. And then we have book 4, The Turning, in which we jump to, I think, 1991, and a ballet dancer who I believe wants to defect from the Soviet Union. So these sound fabulous. Then another series of books that I absolutely loved in middle school, but only read a few, were the Gerald Morris series of Arthurian retellings. So they got rid of a few more, so I made sure to grab them. This one I've never read, The Ballad of Sir Dinadan. This one I definitely read, but again, it's been over 2 decades. The Squire, His Knight, and His Lady, which follows Sir Gawain from the back and a variety of characters following him on his journey. And then we also have Parsifal's Page, told from, I would assume, Parsifal's page, whose name might be Giles, based on this excerpt in the back, or possibly Piers. In any case, they are retellings of Arthurian legends, but with a very humorous lens to them. I loved them as a middle grade reader, so I'm really excited to follow up on those as an adult. And next up, the London Book Haul. Also, thank you for being patient with the lighting today. The weather cannot make up its mind. So I've turned my bedroom light on. Hopefully that helps. I am immensely proud of myself that I went to London, bought 12 books, came home, and my suitcase was still 3 kilos under the weight limit. Very pleased with myself. I'm going to attempt to go in chronological, or at least location order. On our first full night in London, we went to see Kinky Boots at the London Coliseum with Johannes Radebe, who I love as a dancer, and the show was absolutely wonderful. And I was so pleased to discover that he wrote a memoir. I had no idea. Since Strictly isn't as big over here, this was not advertised to us. So I bought it. It's called JoJo Finally Home, and this is advertised as including a new chapter. So I'm really excited to get to know more about him, his life in South Africa, coming to London, becoming a dancer, all of the relevant pieces of his life. I feel like that will be a lot of fun. In extra perks, when we stopped in the Waterstones at Piccadilly Circus, I didn't end up buying a book there, but they were giving away these free bookmarks with Harry Kane on them, who, yes, is the England captain, but also my favorite player. So, of course, I had to pick one up. Speaking of which, we were going to go on a huge London book crawl, but we landed right in the middle of the first massive heat wave that London had. And so we just weren't really feeling it. We thought, well, we'll walk along this road. We know the flagship Waterstones is here. We'll at least do that. Then we'll see how we feel after some aircon and some lunch. What we did not realize is that we would find Hatchards on the same street and that would show up first, as a matter of fact. So we stopped in there. And it was amazing. I do have some clips that maybe I will fashion together into a vlog and show you how happy my mother was to walk upstairs and be greeted by an entire wall of P.G. Wodehouse books. I don't have her books here to show you, but I bought 4 books there myself as well. The first may seem a slightly odd pick. It's the Magic Faraway Tree collection by Enid Blyton. But I know the film of this is finally coming to the States. We weren't sure if we were going to get it. I believe it's coming to the US in August. And I've heard mixed reviews of it. But Enid Blyton books are almost impossible to find here in the US. You either cannot find them or they are extremely expensive. But I wanted to be able to read the books first, or at least soon after, to be able to make my own opinions and understand where all of the praise and criticisms were coming from. So as long as we were in Hatchards, I bought this bind-up of the 3 major novels in that series, so hopefully I can do that. If you're unfamiliar, as I was before the trailer, this is about a group of, I believe, 3 children. Yes, 3 children. And they find a magic tree in the woods that delivers all kinds of fantastical adventures, and things unfold from there. The film makes it seem as though there's a bit more context around it. I don't know if that exists within the books as well, but I'll find out. There, I also picked up Monte Carlo by Moonlight by Anton Dubek, which is the sequel to The Royal Show. This is his separate Forsyth series. And given that I just finished The Royal Show last week, I'm going to not read the back on this just yet. But clearly the Forsyth troupe goes to Monte Carlo. Or this could be the backstory of when they were in Monte Carlo. I'm not sure if it's forwards or backwards in time. Either way, I'm excited. I also found this gorgeous edition of Black and British by David Olusoga. This is a new, I believe, edition by Picador, and it's just brilliant. I love that this book is already considered a classic to be given this classic-esque sort of edition. I've been hearing about this book for years and really wanting to read it, given all of the praise that I had heard. But it became very difficult to find here in the US yet again. And I would keep my eyes peeled, but never find a copy, and But then we started planning this trip, and I thought, well, if I'm going to buy an edition, I really should buy an edition in Britain. I feel like that would be extra special and poetic. Also, having seen David Olusoga on The Celebrity Traders, I got to love him. I think he's a wonderful person. So I am really excited to get to this. I say that about all of these books. When precisely am I going to get to any of them? I really don't know, but I'm going to try my best. Then a complete surprise was that I picked up Queer Georgians by Anthony Delaney. And it is exactly what it says, a history of various queer people within the Georgian period. I love that it is blurbed, at least, by both Tracy Borman and Emma Donoghue. I do know a bit about a lot of the people that it mentions on the back, like Mother Clapp's Holborn Coffee House and the ladies of Llangollen, Anne Lister, Chevalier d'Eon. I don't know. He's the only one I don't know. But this sounds fascinating. Georgian history is my favorite period, and I've been excited to read this since I heard about it on Goodreads, so I was thrilled when a copy was just there, out on a table in Hatchards, so I had to pick it up. Then we went to Bath, and before we even got on the train, I knew I had to stop in a W.H. Smith and pick up Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. This has been massive on both sides of the Atlantic. I'm sure I don't need to tell you what it's about, but I will just in case. This is about a tradwife influencer who I believe one day wakes up and discovers that she is living in 1830-something and has to actually live the life that she's been peddling, and discovers the very bleak realities of that. It has sounded absolutely fascinating, and it's been mega popular everywhere. I could have gotten this through my library, but I would probably still be waiting. I was still 400 and something on the wait list for both the ebook and the audiobook, despite my library having multiple copies. And I discovered that in W.H. Smith, this is less expensive than a copy in the US for a full-blown hardback. So I had to pick up a copy. Hopefully I will get to this soon, because absolutely everyone is talking about it, and I'm intrigued to join in on the discourse. Then we went to Bath, where I lived for a very long time, and there were old bookstores I wanted to revisit, as well as new ones that I had never been to. Firstly, we stopped in Mr. B's Book Emporium, which I always adore, and they had a copy of Operation Tango by Anton Dubek. This is the second book in his middle grade series, which follows two twins who have been evacuated to the coast, and there's a mystery they have to solve. It is still set in World War II. Ballroom dance is still featured, but they are absolutely adorable and beautifully illustrated. I loved book 1 over Christmas, so I'm thrilled to have book 2. I had also never been to Persephone Books. It was in London when I was living in Bath, and I just never made it there. But now it has moved to Bath, so I stopped in and thought I would just look at the shelves. But then I found they had a copy of Reuben Sachs by Amy Levy. Both Katie of Books and Things and Marissa of Blatantly Bookish have been begging me to read Amy Levy. I know they both think very highly of her. She was a Jewish author in the later half of the Victorian era. And this in particular, I believe, plays on Daniel Deronda and its popularity, but also satirizes the expectations that Daniel Deronda's portrayal of Jewish people set. And I especially love the opening bit that they give you here, because Persephone book flaps don't give you a summary, they just give you a snippet from the novel. So this is clearly about a Jewish family in the, I want to say, 1880s in London, and they're having a conversation about Daniel Deronda and the expectations it sets. "I wonder," cried Rose, throwing herself into the breach, "what Mr. Lee Harrison thought of it all." "I think," said Leo, "that he was shocked at finding us so little like the people in Daniel Deronda." "Did he expect," cried Esther, "to see our boxes in the hall, ready packed and labeled Palestine?" "I've always been touched," said Leo, "at the immense good faith with which George Eliot carried out that elaborate misconception of hers." "Now Leo's going to begin," cried Rose. "He never has a good word for his people. He is always running them down." "Horrid bad form," said Reuben, "besides being altogether a mistake." "Oh, I have nothing to say against us at all," answered Leo ironically, "except that we are materialists to our fingers' ends." And this sounds absolutely fantastic. Although it does make me wonder, am I finally going to have to yield and read Daniel Deronda, which I have been putting off for years? I may have to, but I do desperately want to read this. We then stopped at Topping & Co., which I have never been to before, but I was thrilled to. I finally got my Belle moment on a ladder in a bookshop. I was absolutely thrilled. But I picked up 2 books while we were there. The first is Mrs. Dickens by Emily Howe. I read The Painter's Daughters, was it 2 years ago now? I think it was 2 years ago now, for, I believe, the first historical fiction readathon, which was a novel she wrote about Thomas Gainsborough's daughters. And this is clearly a novel that she has written about Dickens's wife, and I believe the whole trajectory of their relationship, both how it started and how it fell apart when Dickens began his infamous affair later on. I liked The Painter's Daughters. I did find the long descriptions of illness, both physical and mental, very disturbing and very claustrophobic, though I'm sure that was the point. So I'm not sure if that's just her style or the style she wanted to adopt to tell that particular story, but being more familiar with the players in this story, maybe that will soften things as well. I'm intrigued to find out. And then in addition, I got the most recent book in the Buckingham Hotel series by Anton Dubek. This was me finishing all of my Anton Dubek series so far. And this 8th book in that series is The Winter Ball. So we are still following our beloved members of the Buckingham Hotel through World War II, very much Downton Abbey with dance. What period are we in by this point? Winter of 1942. We're still in 1942. He has a lot of the war to go, but honestly, I don't quite want it to end, just to be able to follow these characters more and more and more. Given that it's book 8 in the series, that's really all I can tell you right now. And then we stopped in their Waterstones, not necessarily expecting to find anything, but then I did. And it was Greg Doran's memoir, Walking Shadow, Love, Loss, and Shakespeare. This is a book that I was thrilled to find out about, and I was desperate to get my hands on a copy. I almost didn't. I missed this book when we were browsing through that Waterstones. A staff member had to go and find it for me in a glaringly obvious place. I was slightly embarrassed. But this sounds incredible. I had no idea that Greg Doran was married to the actor Anthony Sher. Greg Doran was a director. Was it at the RSC? Was it at the Globe? It was definitely one or the other, if not both. He has directed many, many Shakespearean productions over the years. Anthony Sher, a major Shakespearean actor, among other roles. Apparently, they were married for a long time. I also had forgotten or wasn't entirely aware that Anthony Sher had passed recently. Apparently, he had cancer. And so this is Greg Doran's memoir, not only of their time together and their shared love of Shakespeare, but also on his dealing with Cher's illness, his death, the grief that he had to go through over that, and how Shakespeare got him through those parts of their journey as well. It sounds amazing. It sounds very, very like Mad for Shakespeare by Jonathan Bate, which I also loved. So I'm hoping I love this one just as much. If both of those books were better advertised here in the US, I feel like we'd have a case for doing more with Shakespeare in schools. Because given the emphasis on mental health, which we desperately need, and that those two books focus heavily on how Shakespeare can help one deal with various mental health crises like health emergencies, grief, loss, I feel like that would make sense and make a compelling case to put him back at the forefront of schools and of culture. But what do I know? Then finally, a last unexpected purchase. We were in the airport getting ready to fly home, and I still had £10 in cash in my wallet. So we ducked into a WH Smith to see what I could do with those. Given my food allergies, I couldn't spend it on snacks, but I did find a book. There were several books. I was overall very impressed with the variety of books in WH Smiths, in railway stations, in airports. The fact that there was such a wide variety of new publishings, older publications, classics, fiction, nonfiction, that kind of variety you really don't find in American bookshops, especially those in airports. There are none in train stations almost. Of the books that were there, I decided to pick up Uncharmed by Lucy Jane Wood. This is her sequel to Rewitched, which I read last November and really enjoyed. So this is yet another cozy, charming book in which we feature a young witch who I'm assuming doesn't quite know what to do with her life or how to use her magic appropriately, and has to go on a journey of self-discovery. And it sounds absolutely delightful, as the first one was. As is this special edition cover. I quite enjoy that. So those are all of the books that I have now added to my TBR. Like I said, how soon will I get to these? I'm not sure. Hopefully soon, because I am quite excited about them. But we'll have to see what I land on. I do then feel like I am neglecting other books that I have purchased. All of my books will be read eventually. And to quote one of my former students back in the fall after she had gone on a book buying spree, I don't need the books, but the books need me. I'm being a good Samaritan. And she's absolutely right. I feel like I am giving these books a good home and will care for them until I can read them. Let me know what you think of any of these if you have read any of them and want me to push them further up my list. If you are curious about any and want me to push them further up my list. If you have other recommendations for me based on what I've picked up here, let me know down below. I always love hearing from you. And until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.